Entering this highly anticipated 2026 Nürburgring 24 Hours, Max Verstappen is the story of the race before it has even begun. But the Nürburgring doesn't care how many world championships you've won. It doesn't care how many hours you spent preparing. It doesn't even care how many fans line the circuit chanting your name. Because no matter who arrives as the favorite, like the myth of the sword and the stone, the ring chooses its rightful winner. Over the next 24 hours, every single driver will face the ultimate test: traffic, rain, oil, pitch black, mechanical failures, and of course, wheel-to-wheel battles with some of the toughest competition in motorsport, all desperate to achieve the same goal. But under the afternoon sun tomorrow, one team will have the immense fortune of forever etching their names in the history books as winners of the 2026 Nürburgring 24 Hours. So join me in riding shotgun with these present-day gladiators as they tackle the most brutal and unforgiving race in the world. And with race day upon us, the drivers prepare to descend into the unknown. Hungadeya starts from 4th place in the fan favorite number 3 Verstappen Racing Mercedes, just behind the number 16 Audi, who was their sparring partner in the early season races. The front row is all Lamborghini, but we have to go all the way back to 25th to find Hungadeya's stablemate Engel in the number 80 after a crash took them out of contention in qualifying. So, with the green flag set to drop, it is a tale of two races, with the 3 fighting at the front and the 80 having to muscle its way up from the back. And as the field creeps down the start-finish straight, it's all eyes on the green flag. Finally, it waves and the race is underway as Hungadeya gets a great start. We can see he is already ahead of that number 16 who falls in line in 4th place. But Hungadeya is not waiting around. He breaks late into the Yokohama S around the outside of that 84 Lamborghini. They go side by side through the second apex and make contact as Hungadeya just tags the left rear of that Lamborghini. Engel is caught in an absolute traffic jam, but is able to navigate his way cleanly through the Yokohama S and continue his race as he has already gained 2 positions. This might be the first 30 seconds of the race, but they are already battling like it's the last lap. Around the outside is the Aston Martin as they go 2 by 2 through this right-hander. The Aston Martin has a nose ahead, but the Mercedes has the run coming out of the corner, and Engel gets the position back, but the Aston has the leverage into this tight right-hander. They go nearly 3 wide out front, but they make contact through the exit. The 99 spins, nearly collecting the Aston Martin, and somehow Engel was able to take avoiding action as out front Hungadeya continues to chase down the 2 Lamborghinis, but Estra, whose name is nearly synonymous with the track, is already up 3 positions and looking for a way past this Conrad Lamborghini out front, who defends into this right-hander. Estra tries to take a wide line and has a huge run on the exit, but nowhere to go as that Lamborghini is able to hold on to 4th place, with Estra desperate to climb his way up through the field. And as they make their way through the chicane, they will enter the Nordschleife for the first time as the Lamborghini's left rear tire gives up. Hungadeya takes avoiding action as Estra pounces, making his way past both Lamborghinis and looking around the outside of the Mercedes as well. Estra up 2 more positions, now in 3rd, and hounding this number 3 who is able to hang on as they are now on the narrow Nordschleife. Further back, Engel continues to pressure the cars out front as he looks up the inside of this 48 Porsche through Sabine Schmidt's curve, but he thinks better of it and falls in line behind that Porsche once again. We can see this line of GT3s all snaking their way through this narrow section of the course. They go through this left-hander, just kiss the curb on the right-hand side before putting the power down. We hear the Mercedes scraping as that splitter hits the ground. Out front, Hungadeya continues to be hounded by that iconic Grello nose of Estra's Porsche as they make their way through Galgenkopf and onto the long Donninger Höhe straight. The Porsche settles into the draft of this Mercedes. But as we have seen in previous years, this Porsche really excels in the corners but struggles on the longer straights. So as they make their way into Tiergarten, Estre pulls to the left-hand side and the Conrad Lamborghini makes its way past and up into third place as they slam on the brakes and make their way back onto the Grand Prix circuit to finish this chaotic opening lap that has already claimed the number 84 pole-sitting Lamborghini. But if the 80 crew has any hopes of challenging their teammates and winning this race, they have to make quick work of this traffic as the 35 Aston Martin makes its way into the pit lane for an early stop, and the Mercedes has good grunt coming out of the corner and makes its way up alongside that 48 Porsche and up into 21st place as he now closes in on that yellow Dynamic GT Porsche just out front. And we see that now iconic yellow and red rear end of the M3 Touring just out front of this Porsche. Engel continues to close in as they make their way into the Goodyear curve. This tight right-hander, he pops to the inside, braking late and making his way up alongside that 54 Dynamic GT car, the Bumblebee livery, as he tries to make his way past but is not able to do so. He pops to the inside once again, has the leverage through the Michael Schumacher S, and they go side by side through the apex. He forces the Porsche wide through the second apex, and they make contact coming out of the exit. The Mercedes nearly losing control, but gaining the position up to P20 as he now closes in on that BMW, which is trying to find its way past the Audi just out front. As Estre now continues to chase down both the Conrad Lamborghini and the second place number 3 Mercedes, who are both just out front. And we can see with just 13 minutes into this race, they are already catching the lapped traffic. And into one of the tightest sections of the course, we can see these slower cars have completely blocked the track. Estre squeezes onto the curb and past the Conrad Lamborghini, but the Lamborghini fights back and Estre has to back out of it once again as they make their way past the slower touring car traffic and their ultra-fast GT3s. Engel finds himself in a traffic jam as well, tucked up behind the massive rear end of that M3 Touring. I wonder if he can feel a little extra draft from this estate car pulling him down these long straights. And through this flat-out section of the course, they continue to make their way past the slower touring cars. It is nearly impossible to overtake on this tight section of the course as they make their way up the hill into Moot Curve, but Engel is incredibly brave as he squeezes past that number 81 and up into 19th place, now closing in on this Audi out front, which sweeps past a Porsche Cayman into this fast right-hander and hits the brakes as he encounters traffic through the exit, giving Maro Engel the run into this tight right-hander, but the Audi hugs the inside line and Engel has nowhere to go as he tries to find a way past this number 75 car. And with Engel aggressively marching his way up through the field, Hungadea has caught the race-leading number 130 Lamborghini, who is also trapped in traffic through that fast right-hander. They come over this crest, and there is barely enough room to go side by side through that corner as the Lamborghini builds a slight gap into the Stefan Beloff S, but catches traffic through this flat-out section of the course, and Hungadea has a huge run, but nowhere to go as he has to hit the brakes and is forced off the track by the Lamborghini. If we look to the right-hand side, there goes the Conrad car, and Estre as well, able to squeeze his way past with Hungadea caught behind this BMW using its turn signals, but has absolutely nowhere to go to get out of Hungadea's way as he has now fallen back to 4th place after being within literal touching distance of the race leader mere moments ago. But such is the racing at the Nürburgring. You never know what to expect and what can happen around each corner. So you always have to be on your game and pushing as hard as possible. Another factor that makes this 24-hour race unique and all the more aggressive is that, unlike Le Mans, Daytona, or Spa, where a safety car can allow you to catch up to your competitors, that is very unlikely to happen here at the Nürburgring. Even when there are major incidents, they will most often locally deal with those yellow flags unless it's a very major incident or some sort of weather that causes a red flag. That is why every moment and every second of this race is so important and why they drive absolutely flat out from the drop of the green as Engel makes his way up alongside and past this Audi, continuing his charge through the field. And once again, as he makes the climb up to Moot Curve, we can see him closing in on another competitor. This time it's Lauren Heinrich in this Lion Speed Porsche, fresh off his overall win at Laguna Seca. We can see the power of this Mercedes as it climbs up this hill and closes in on the Porsche. He looks to the right-hand side, then to the left, once again squeezing up alongside an ultra-brave, ultra-committed move into Moot Curve, which appropriately literally translates to Courage Corner. But just up the road, Juncadella continues to chase down the Grello Porsche, which is hounding the race-leading Lamborghinis just out front. And into the carousel, we can see the Lamborghinis are caught behind some touring car traffic, and it is a 3-car battle for the race lead. The Lamborghinis power out of the carousel and motor their way past that Toyota. Once again, this Porsche is so strong in the corners, but just struggles on the straights, especially compared to these Lamborghinis, which are absolute rocket ships at this race. And through this right-hander, they squeeze past the slower traffic, the blue flags incessantly waving on the side of the track as a Cayman stays to the left and looks like it has some damage as they continue to wind their way through this section of the course. Estra aggressively using the curbs as they make their way through this uphill right-hander. The road falls away on the exit. You hustle back to the right-hand side to set up this double apex left-hander. Miss both of these apex curbs on the left-hand side, and we can see yet more traffic out front going side by side ahead of the race-leading Lamborghini, which is caught in this traffic. They go 3 wide through the exit as Estra continues behind the Conrad car and pokes his nose up the inside through Ice Curve. The Lamborghini leaves space as Estra makes his way past and up into second place behind the now race-leading number 130 Lamborghini, as he has now built a gap to that number 7 Conrad car. And Estra is now tantalizingly close to the race-leading Lamborghini. And with the battle raging out front, Engel finds himself in a battle pack back here in 16th place, but with 11th just up the road. On board with Heinemann, we can see a BMW leading an Aston, another BMW in front of this Porsche, who is in 14th place and squeezes around the outside of that slower traffic as there is a Mustang behind the Porsche, and then Engel, as I mentioned, back here in 16th place. These 6 cars could not be closer together as the Aston hounds that 11th place BMW through this fast but slightly awkward left-hander that leads into the Kleines Carousel. Through the second of these iconic banked corners, they jump out of the exit as Engel plots his plan of attack as he tries to find his way past these 5 cars out front. Through Galgenkopf, they head onto the long straight, and that Porsche is tucked in just behind the 77 BMW as Engel tries to find a draft off this Mustang out front. Tim Heinemann, driving this Falcon tire Porsche, closes in on that BMW in the draft as the Aston Martin and number 1 BMW out front go side by side down this long Dottingerhöhe straight through the flat-out left-hander. Just behind, Engel slowly inches his way towards Schumacher in his number 65 Mustang. Through the left-hander, he looks up the inside, but there is just nowhere to go around that wide Mustang as Engel backs out of it and hits the brakes. Through this right-hander that leads onto the Grand Prix circuit, the Aston Martin has gotten out front of that BMW, but it pulls to the right-hand side for an early off-strategy pit stop as the other 5 continue blasting their way down this front straight. Engel pokes his nose up the inside of this Mustang, who defends the position, and Engel breaks late around the outside of the Mustang and the Porsche as well, and goes side by side with the Yokohama BMW, but has a narrow entry into this left-hander, and the Porsche reclaims 10th position ahead of this Mercedes as he goes wheel to wheel with the Yokohama BMW into this fast left-hander. The Porsche has the outside line, but is caught behind that slower traffic as Engel now has a run through the right-hander, but himself is caught behind slower traffic, and the Mustang of Schumacher tries to find his way past, but Engel has a run coming out of the corner. This Mercedes has so much grunt under acceleration and tries to find his way past Heinemann as well, who defends into the right-hander. Engel goes around the outside, but is once again caught behind traffic and has to tuck in behind the Porsche, but he gets a better run out of the corner once again and has the grunt to make his way around the outside through the Schumacher S and up into 10th place, dropping this Porsche back to P11. This is absolutely breathless racing here at the Nürburgring, but Engel's charge is not over, and once again as they make the climb into boot curve, he is in the draft of this Yokohama BMW and pops to the left-hand side to easily make his way past and up into 9th place as he continues now behind the number 1 BMW. And with Engel driving like a man possessed, Hunkadea continues now in 3rd place. We see that Grello Porsche just ahead, making its way through Tiergarten to complete the lap. And with an hour of the race nearly complete, they will make their way into pit lane. Notably out front though, the 130 Lamborghini has run into trouble. It pitted on the previous lap, but lost time as the team had to repair damage on the front end. And as Hunkadea hits the brakes, we can see the 2 cars out front are indeed that number 911 Porsche and the now race-leading number 7 Conrad Lamborghini. Hunkadea, though, pulls into his box, and we can see there is Max Verstappen himself, fully kitted and ready to go. I said it in a previous video, but if this is your first time watching Nürburgring or NLS racing, these pit stops are a bit anticlimactic. So with Max ready to go, this will be one of the more leisurely pit stops that you will see in endurance racing. And with the 3 Mercedes being spun around, the 80 pulls into his pit box now just behind its teammate after a successful first stint for Mauro Engel. Finally, Max deliberately slides behind the wheel as Hunkadea gets to work buckling this 4-time world champion into his number 3 Mercedes. He shares a few words of advice before giving him a pat, buckling up the window net, and finally slamming the door shut. With Max now isolated in his Mercedes and prepared for his first stint in the Nürburgring 24 hours. And back out on track, it is not as leisurely or as relaxed as it was in the pit lane because Max has been thrust into a 4-way battle with the 911 Porsche out front of this Mercedes and indeed the Conrad Lamborghini as well. Priding is in the effective race lead for what I would call the standard pit stop strategy, but as we can see, there are 6 cars that made shorter initial pit stops on earlier laps that have jumped ahead, but as Verstappen breaks into the right-hander on his opening racing lap at the Nürburgring 24 hours, he is not wasting any time as he tries to find his way past this Conrad Lamborghini and catch up to that number 911 Porsche before it has a chance to pull away. We can see him flashing his lights as they come down through the foxhole. They hit the brakes and then miss this curb on the left-hand side. Max carries huge speed to the left-hander and the right-hander as well, trying to find his way past this Lamborghini, but there is just nowhere to go. He could not be closer through this right-hander as they put the power down. Verstappen once again flashing his lights, desperate to make his way past this Lamborghini and get back on terms with the Grello number 911 Porsche. Through the fast left-hander, the Lamborghini hits the brakes as they make their way past a slower Porsche Cayman. Verstappen does not waste any time behind the traffic though and looks around the outside of the Lamborghini through this long right-hander, but you cannot overtake through the outside and the Lamborghini regains 9th place ahead of the 4-time Formula 1 world champion. They encounter more traffic. The Mercedes goes up the inside as Verstappen closes in on the Lamborghini, but once again, there is just nowhere to go. He pokes his nose up the inside, but thinks better of it as he tucks in behind the Lamborghini, flashing his lights toward the slower traffic out front that he is coming through, whether they like it or not. This is exactly what we wanted to see when Verstappen announced he would be at the Nürburgring. Him going wheel to wheel and dicing through the traffic against the best GT3 drivers in the world. Into ice curve, he closes in on the Lamborghini driver using absolutely every inch of that exit curb. Verstappen not taking any prisoners and not taking any time to get up to speed as they go over that jump, all 4 wheels off the ground for the Lamborghini out front, through this fast left-hander and then through this downhill sweeping left-hander. Verstappen gets completely airborne as the front end of his car took off and the aero wash behind the Lamborghini. I don't know how he held onto it and kept the car out of the wall, but behind the wheel, he is completely ice cold. Back on the Doningahö, Verstappen is now behind the Mercedes that's on that shorter first pit stop strategy. Now, if this is your first Nürburgring 24 hours, that's actually a very common strategy. Because the Nürburgring has mandated pit stop times depending upon your stint length, teams will often opt to take an earlier pit stop to help get them out of traffic and get them off strategy with the leaders. This allows them to get out front initially, but they are slowly swallowed up by the faster cars as this race continues. And indeed, Verstappen easily made his way past that Mercedes and continues now behind the Conrad Lamborghini as they head into this fast left-right chicane. Verstappen closes in dramatically with the Lamborghini caught behind slower traffic. That's the old M3 GT3 car. The Lamborghini hugs the inside line, and Verstappen gets a great run through the apex. The Lamborghini slides wide, and Verstappen has his nose up the inside and makes his way past into Sabine Schmidt's curve, up into 8th place, and now looking to chase down that number 911 Grello Porsche. But just out front of Grello is the M3 Touring, which is locked into an incredible battle with some of the early pit stoppers. Klingman closes in on Stippler in the number 64 Mustang, who's trying to find a way past this KCMG Mercedes. They go side by side into the braking zone, and the Mustang has the inside line as Klingman tries to slip his way past as well, but has to fall in line behind that KCMG Mercedes once again as they hit traffic, and we can see Preining now has a front row view to this three-way battle. Down the front stretch, the Mercedes now has the run on the Mustang and looks around the outside with Stippler defending to the inside, but Klingman is closing in. Down the front stretch, the Mustang squeezes them both to the left-hand side of the road as Klingman tries to find his way past, but was boxed in by the Mercedes that breaks deep. So does the Mustang, but it reclaims that 5th position as Stippler was latest of the late breakers into the Yokohama S, and Klingman is forced off the road by the KCMG Mercedes, and Preining got a face full of dirt from that M3 Touring. The Mercedes hangs onto P5 and squeezes the BMW as Preining now has a run around the outside of the number 81 car. Klingman tries to hang on, and they go side by side into the Goodyear curve. Preining is on the less preferred outside line, but we know how good this Porsche is on the brakes as he makes his way past the M3 Touring and up into 6th place, working his way through these early pit stoppers. Through the exit of the Schumacher S, and he is already closing in on the Mercedes out front. With these three now locked into a battle for P4, they make their way through the Stefan Beloff S, and Verstappen has caught the battle. Despite that early airborne moment, he is not wasting any time and is driving absolutely flat out in his number 3 car as the KCMG Mercedes is caught up behind traffic into this fast left-hander. Verstappen closes in on the massive rear end of the M3 Touring. That Porsche Cup car has nowhere to go as they squeeze their way past and then jump out of the Kleines Carousel. Verstappen has a huge run and looks around the outside into Galgenkolb, but the BMW has the preferred line, but slides wide through the apex. Verstappen has a nose alongside and then makes his way past the number 81 as he squeezes Klingman to the edge of the road, but leaves just enough space for this number 81 BMW, which now tucks into Verstappen's draft. I wonder if Verstappen could have predicted a year ago that he would be fighting for position against an estate car in 2026. And down the long straight, Preining is in the draft of the KCMG Mercedes. Preining is on the less preferred outside line, but is able to squeeze his way past into the braking zone. And with the Porsche driver now up to 4th place, Verstappen needs to make quick work of this KCMG Mercedes to keep the number 3 car in contention and fighting with the number 911 Porsche. As they make their way into Lauda Links, the left-hander where Lauda had his massive crash, Verstappen and the 47 are caught behind traffic as they make their way past a safety vehicle. The 47 pops to the right-hand side, and Verstappen pops his nose to the left-hand side to get a better run through this right-hander. As he puts the power down, he begins to close in on this white and blue Mercedes just out front. He looks to the right-hand side, but this is a section of track where I have absolutely never seen an overtake before. But Verstappen goes alongside and indeed past as he goes 2 wheels in the grass. That left-hander is normally flat out, and I think it was, even with Max taking to the grass. An incredible pass, but as I said, he is wasting absolutely no time as he tries to chase down that number 911 Porsche of Preining. And with Verstappen already building a gap to the KCMG Mercedes. We jump back aboard the number 80 car, which is just behind that number 130, which, as I said, was delayed as they repaired damage in that early pit stop. The Mercedes closes in on the Lamborghini and then pokes its nose up the inside and past. An aggressive move for Engel as he now closes in on the 16 Audi, which put up such a strong fight in the early season races. Out front of the 16 are two more of the early stoppers, the red and black Mustang number 65 car and the blue and yellow Mercedes we saw Verstappen fighting with earlier. Down the long straight, and we can see Engel continuing to close in on these three out front, and as he hits the brakes, there is now no gap between the three cars out front and this number 80 Mercedes. But down the front stretch, the two cars out front pull into the pit lane, leaving the Mercedes to battle with number 16 Audi as they cross the start-finish line. Into the Yokohama S, they both take the traditional racing line, but the Audi begins to defend to the inside. Engel looks at the inside and then brakes late around the outside as they go side by side through the first apex. Engel has the leverage through the left-hander, but the Audi is able to get the better run coming out of the corner as they go side by side into the left-hander. The Audi has the run, but the Mercedes has the grunt as he gets ahead and up into 4th place. What an incredible first 2 hours of driving from Engel as he has methodically and mercilessly worked his way through this GT3 field. But back out front, Verstappen has indeed caught the rear of this Grello Porsche, and ahead of them, only two of the early stoppers remain. So, although this Porsche is technically in 3rd place, this is really the effective battle for the race lead between Grello and Red Bull, between Verstappen and Guven as they hit the throttle and make their way over this crest through the easy flat-out left-hander and then rejoin the Grand Prix circuit. Verstappen has a fantastic draft underneath the rear wing of this iconic Porsche. And I know I already said it once, but this is exactly what we hoped for when Verstappen said he would be racing here at the Nürburgring in 2026, as he is now within touching distance of the effective race lead. But we can see raindrops beginning to fall on the windscreen as the Porsche driver slides through the right-hander, nearly losing control on the damp and cold track. Guven able to hang on though, as we can see the windshield wiper working and whisking the water off that windscreen. Down the front stretch, and Guven has a safe gap to Verstappen behind. But into the Yokohama S, Verstappen brakes incredibly late and slides his way up alongside and then past the Porsche driver. But is he too deep? Guven has the better run through the left-hander, but Verstappen hugs the left side of the road and there is nowhere for Guven to go as he is now back down to 4th place with Verstappen up to 3rd, chasing the two remaining early stoppers out front who are locked in a battle for the race lead. We can see just ahead the 67 Mustang and the 34 Aston are nose to tail through the left-hander. Olsen trying to find his way past through the Kleines Carousel, but the yellow Aston Martin just has the advantage as they make their way into Galgenkopf and then back onto the Dottinger Höhe. With these two now locked in a battle out front, Verstappen is closing in as we can see debris littering the track on the right-hand side. And as I said, unlike Le Mans, Daytona, they will not use a safety car to clean up this debris, just a local yellow as Dennis Olsen goes side by side with the Aston Martin for the race lead. He pops to the right-hand side to try to break the draft of that number 34 car, but the Aston driver is too savvy and uses the side draft to claw his way back up alongside the Mustang. Down this ultra-long straightaway, the Aston has once again reclaimed the race lead ahead of Dennis Olsen in this awesome Mustang with its Bundeswehr livery. This is probably the only modern-day GT3 track I know of where you can see a pass and indeed a repass on this same straightaway. And through Hohenrhein, Verstappen is about to join this battle for the race lead. And down the front stretch in front of the grandstands, the Aston has just built a slight gap to this Mustang. Into turn 1, Verstappen takes a slightly different line, using all of the road on the entry and taking a wider run into the first corner so he can set up for a better exit coming out of the second element of this Yokohama S, and we can see how much he has closed in on Dennis Olsen in this Mustang. Olsen moves to the middle of the road. Verstappen once again uses every inch of the tarmac, holding a tighter line to the left-hander to set up for a better run coming out of this right-hander. As the Mustang slides through the exit, we can see that number 67 car struggling for grip at this point in the stint. Verstappen now poking his nose into the mirrors of this Mustang driver. Olsen has the racing line, but just slides on the exit once again in that Bundeswehr liveried Mustang. Verstappen has the outside line, but so does the Dacia Logan, and Verstappen has to back out of it with his run for second place foiled by that blue and green car. Into the left-hander, the Mustang takes a very defensive line. Olsen taking absolutely no chances, but that gives Max Verstappen a huge run through this right-hander. He takes a really wide entry and is able to carry huge speed through the apex and indeed exit as the Mustang once again struggles for grip, that rear wing waggling. Verstappen goes side by side through the flat-out right-hander, but the Mustang has the preferred line into the chicane and indeed reclaims second place as Verstappen wisely chooses to back out of it on that outside line. Through the left-hander, Verstappen uses every inch of the road on the exit all the way up to that barrier, and we can see a yellow flag out front, and indeed yellow flags waving as well as they hit the brakes and slow down. There will be a code 60 just ahead as Verstappen hits the pit lane speed limiter. It is so important to not only manage, but take advantage of these slower code 60 sections of the track to try to gain on your competitors. And as Verstappen releases the speed limiter, we can see him close in on the Mustang, and it's not often you see cars racing around a crane on a live racetrack, but the Mustang and indeed Aston are trying to find their way past a slower Porsche Cup car. They are just caught up with the yellow flags, and Verstappen used that to his advantage, has a huge run going two wheels through some of the debris on the right-hand side, but makes his way up alongside and indeed past the 67 Mustang of Olsen as he tucks into the draft of the Aston Martin out front. Olsen tries to close in, but is actually slowly falling further away from the number 3 Mercedes. And with Verstappen getting a fantastic draft out front, he is now within touching distance of the race lead as he kicks up sparks through Tiergarten and then pokes his nose up the inside through the braking zone, making his way past and into the race lead here at the Nurburgring as he ducks and dives his way through the traffic. Incredible driving from Verstappen, who now on merit is in the race lead. With Gounod taking the helm of the number 3, he continues to push the lead out front of the Grello Porsche, but nearly loses control as there is oil on the track. Gounod darts up the inside of traffic into Brunchen and catches more oil as he nearly goes off the track, locking up the front brakes just behind Estra, hits the same patch of oil and slides off and into the barrier. Incredibly bad luck for the French driver as he tries to get back underway. We can see another car spinning off on the oil. Just about nothing Estra could have done in that scenario as we can see him now falling back through the field. He tries to get back going again, but indeed the damage is too severe and he finds a resting spot on the side of the track. A day that began with such promise for this Grello crew ends in huge disappointment after just 4 hours. But such is the Nürburgring. You never know what will appear around the corner, and you never know what danger lurks out in the distance. And with another stint complete, Gounod pulls into the pit lane. But now they are being tailed closely by their teammates in the number 80 Mercedes, who have continued to charge their way up through this field. And as they hit their pit box, it's another anticlimactic pit stop as the team slowly spins around this number 3 car and prepares it for yet another stint. And as these 2 Mercedes are being released from their pit boxes, an old foe is coming to join them for battle. And if you look to the right-hand side, there is that number 80 Mercedes exiting the pit lane as De Filippi brakes incredibly late in the Yokohama S on his hot tires. He closes in on the Ravenel sponsored car as he pokes his nose up the inside through the exit, but the Mercedes has the better line coming off the corner and is able to hang on to second place ahead of De Filippi, who pokes his nose up the inside and is not afraid to flash the lights as he tries to find his way past this Mercedes driver who is getting his tires up to temperature. He gives a little kiss through the exit as the Mercedes hangs on into the right-hander. But with this lap continuing onto the Nordschleife, the two Mercedes are in absolute lockstep. They go over the crest and through the fast right-hander as Schiller is desperate to find his way past the number 3 to not only gain the race lead, but also a bit of breathing room on the number 81, who is tailing his every move. Through Galgenkopf, and the BMW has closed in on the number 81, who is in the draft of his teammate in the number 3. Down this long stretch, we will see who has the better performance on the straights as De Filippi begins to close in on the number 80, who is also closing in on his teammate. De Filippi has the better run, but as he pokes his nose into the clean air, his speed begins to stall behind these two Mercedes. Schiller is being sucked closer and closer to Gunal, who uses his turn signal to let his teammate know that he will be staying to the right-hand side as they go 2 by 2 into Tiergarten, with De Filippi flashing the lights, a huge spray of sparks out of the rear of the number 80, which goes into first place ahead of his teammate, with Gunal now sliding into the clutches of this number 81 BMW, which looks to have fantastic performance at this point in the race. Through the Hotzenbach section, De Filippi could not be closer to the two Mercedes drivers. They go through this right-left sequence, and we see the Mercedes out front sliding a little wide as there's precipitation now on the windscreen. The track is getting a little bit wet, a little bit greasy, and it seems like these two Mercedes are beginning to struggle for grip. Up and over the crest, and Gunal makes his way gingerly through Flugplatz as his teammate catches traffic on the exit, which kills his run, but Gunal has nowhere to go and has to lift out of the throttle as De Filippi now has a huge run on the two Mercedes drivers who are absolutely nose to tail. De Filippi looks around the outside, but there is just nowhere to go into Schwedenkreuz as he falls in line behind Gunal once again, who is stuck behind his teammate in that number 80 car. The battle remains as you were, once again into the Hotzenbach section with the 3 just behind the 80, and De Filippi all the while stalking these two Mercedes, who hit that apex curb on the right-hand side, missed that apex on the left, and then clobbered this curb on the right-hand side to minimize your turning radius through that corner as you try to carry as much speed as possible. And we see Gunal sliding wide, once again precipitation on his windscreen as we can see more rain is falling, and Gunal activates the windshield wipers. We can see back aboard the 81, the rain has become significant as they make their way into Flugplatz, the two Mercedes out front taking it nice and easy, trying not to lose control and lose the race through this corner, but the BMW driver is much more aggressive and makes his way up alongside and indeed past the number 3 Red Bull Mercedes, which is caught behind slower traffic and has to hit the brakes down the straight and into Schwedenkreuz. The 81 now all over the race leading number 80 Mercedes as they hit the brakes into Arenberg. De Filippi gets a little wiggle at the rear of his car, but puts the power down and stays glued to the tail of Schiller as they make their way down into the foxhole. This section of the course is easily flat out in a GT3, but as you make your way down into the compression and over the crest, the left-hander is so treacherous, especially in these changeable conditions. De Filippi carries huge speed though and makes his way past the Mercedes around the outside through Adenauer Forest. What an incredibly aggressive move from De Filippi to get the estate car, or wagon as we say in America, into the race lead here at the Nurburgring. Just incredible racing between these 3 drivers as Schiller has not given up and continues to tail just behind that number 81 car, with Gunal all the while following closely behind his teammate. And as this lap has continued, the pace has greatly reduced as the rain has increased. They are just crawling through this right-hander, and Gunnar nearly loses it on the exit despite their low speed. They both quickly make their way into the pit lane to grab a set of wet tires. But as they slam the brakes, we can see just out front is that number 81 BMW, which is in the race lead. But as we know, they're on the slightly shorter first stop strategy. So this pit stop will be significantly longer for the number 81 than it is for the 3 and indeed the 80. And this will hand over the race lead back to the two Mercedes. So as the mechanics bolt on the wet tires, it will be the two teammates battling for the race lead. Indeed, back out on track, Auer is now aboard the car and just behind his teammate, and we can see just how treacherous it is in these rainy conditions. But Auer knows just the curbs to use as his teammate is caught behind traffic in that number 80, and the race for the lead is indeed on as they make their way up into Flugplatz. Over the crest, Auer has left a slight gap to his teammate, who is caught up behind traffic on the exit once again and has a slam on the brakes in avoidance. Auer has a massive advantage as he looks around the outside into Schwedenkreuz, but the 80 car is just a sitting duck and falls in line behind the number 3, which once again claims the race lead. They might be teammates, but the number 3 and 80 crews are battling absolutely all out for this race victory. And as dusk turns to night, the battling has not relented, and if anything, it has gotten all the more intense under the cover of darkness. The track may be pitch black, but these drivers are so incredibly well trained, they know every single inch of the road. Auer flashes his lights to warn the car out front that he is closing in quickly. They go over the jump through the fast right-hander, and he is caught behind that Porsche Cup car and goes around the outside as Stolz follows closely behind, flashing his lights as well. They come over this little crest where Verstappen got airborne earlier in the race, and through the Stefan Beloff S's, they close in on yet more traffic. Auer has to take to the grass to make his way past as Stolz looks around the outside, but there's just nowhere to go through this fast braking zone that leads into the off-camber left-hander as they shoot up the inside of another slower car. It is just instinctual for these drivers to make their way past the slower traffic. They don't overthink it, they just absolutely send it into Galgenkopf, which leads onto the Donninger Höhe. You clip that first apex and then try to catch the early part of this curb on the right-hand side, which sets you up perfectly to slam the throttle and get a great run onto this long straightaway. As they approach VMAX, we just see the glimmer of twinkling lights off in the distance. Stolz just gradually closing in on his teammate out front. Auer moves to the middle of the road, and Stolz has time to decide which side he wants to pass on. He looks to the right, then easily moves to the left-hand side. Auer does not fight it, and Stolz is passed and into the race lead. Auer hangs on his side for a second and then lifts out of the throttle to allow the number 80 to reclaim the racing line into Tiergarten. And although things seem neat and tidy at the moment, just you wait to see how this battling escalates as the night continues. Onto the front straight, it is advantage number 80 as the number 3 of Auer continues just behind. And with Hunkedea now aboard the number 3, the 80 is still within touching distance as, like anglerfish in the deep sea, multicolored lights have now overtaken the night sky at the Nurburgring. Through the left-hander, Hunkedea closes in once again, using every inch of road and driving incredibly aggressively as he shoots the number 3 out of the Kleines Carousel, whipping past the multicolored lights. Through Galgenkopf, it's a little dab of the brakes on the entry, and a little lift through the exit before slamming the throttle once again as the 80 kicks up dirt through the apex, showing you just how hard these two drivers are pushing in this German night. Down the long straightaway, it's silent other than the sound of this purring Mercedes engine as Hunkedea has his teammate in his crosshairs. The straight continues, and these two Mercedes are so evenly matched as they make their way up the crest. Hunkedea just has the advantage of the draft. under the bridge and into Tiergarten, we see the first signs of life as there is traffic on the left-hand side of the road, but I'm sure the drivers aren't looking at that as Stolz encounters traffic through Hohenrhein. The Cup car tries to find its way past the BMW, and Lukas Stolz splits between the two of them as Hungadea has a huge run, and they go 4 wide down the front straight for the race lead. Hungadea has the leverage on the inside line, but Stolz fights his way back around the outside into the Yokohama S. Hungadea brakes as late as possible, but he runs deep, and Stolz has the better line coming out of the left-hander. But Hungadea is indeed ahead as they make their way around the Grand Prix circuit. The number 3 car now holding the number 1 spot. Down the long Donninger Höhe straightaway once again, and this time Stolz has the advantage in Hungadea's draft. He inches his way closer and closer to the rear of this Red Bull liveried Mercedes. Kind of ironic when you think about Formula 1, but Stolz looks to the left-hand side as he easily breezes his way past Hungadea. But Hungadea incessantly flashes his lights as they make their way actually 3 wide past the touring car. His teammate did not leave a huge amount of space and eases him nearly into the grass through the fast left-hander as Stolz now reclaims the race lead, and Hungadea continues to flash his lights behind his teammate. Rapport between the teammates is becoming a lot less friendly and a lot more aggressive as this battling continues to rage through the night. And when I think of the quintessential Nürburgring atmosphere, this is exactly what I imagine. 2 drivers pushing flat out through traffic in a mesmerizing fashion as fireworks go off in the distance and multicolored lights lining the course. I just love this. So let's take a moment and absorb this incredible racing and incredible atmosphere. Hungadea really using every curb absolutely perfectly as we go through this section of the course. We are truly lucky to be able to enjoy this incredible racing, to live in the same timeline as these incredible drivers and indeed each other. I'm just so appreciative that you guys are watching this video, and I'm so appreciative of all the love and support I get. I just want to say that right now while we're watching these 2 drivers, how incredible it is that we get to enjoy this all together. And back onto the Donninger Höhe once again. Hungadea gets a huge run as they make their way out of that code 60. Stolz in the 80, able to make his way past that Audi GT3 as he continues ahead of his teammate. With this long straightaway, drivers have the rare opportunity to actually plan their course of attack. Hungadea pulls to the right-hand side and then back to the left as his teammate tries to defend, squeezing him nearly off the road once again, but Hungadea has the advantage and makes his way past, retaking the race lead as this battle has not yet come to blows, but certainly there seems to be no love lost between Stolz and Hungadea in this stint. With Engel taking over the helm of the 80 Mercedes, he continues to pressurize this number 3 of Hungadea, who is caught in an absolute gaggle of slower traffic. He sweeps his way past those touring cars on the right and left-hand side, going 3 wide, but Engel is following his every move and now firmly in the draft of the number 3. Down the long straight they go, Engel marching his way closer and closer under the bridge. He pops to the left-hand side. Hungadea has the preferred line, but Engel has a huge run and makes his way up ahead as Hungadea indeed thinks better of it and actually backs out of it, allowing his teammate through, all the while headlights flashing. And with Verstappen now behind the wheel of this Mercedes, the fireworks continue in the distance as he closes in on Engel in that number 80. We can see sparks flying as they have not relented in the slightest and continue to push their cars as hard as they possibly can in the quest for this elusive Nürburgring victory. Through the right-hander, the Mercedes driver squeezes up the inside of that BMW as Verstappen is all over and could not be closer to his teammate in the number 80, using every inch of road on the exit as well. As they go through ice curve, they will absolutely slam the curb on the exit as they wind their way into the jump. Both cars getting airborne and then carrying huge speed as they come over this crest. Let's see if Verstappen lifts out of the throttle. He leaves a little space. We still saw the car get a little airborne through there, but his teammate is caught up in this traffic as Verstappen has nowhere to go and has to back out of it as well. Through the right-hander, they hit the brakes once again through the off-camber left-hander. Verstappen flashing his lights as he closes in on his teammate who goes through the Kleines carousel. Verstappen carries huge speed as we see him jumping out of the exit, carrying much more speed than his teammate. The Mercedes driver out front clips the curb through the first apex as Verstappen just loses a little bit of pace in the aero wash from the car out front. He is firmly in the draft of his teammate though, and down this long straightaway will almost surely close in and make the pass for the race lead. And down the long straightaway, the number 80 begins super clipping. I'm just kidding. We don't do that here in GT3 racing. That's only Formula 1 racing where you see super clipping nowadays. But indeed, this battle for the lead continues as they make their way through the chicane and back onto the Nordschleife. Verstappen takes a huge amount of apex curb through that chicane and then slams on the brakes through this left hand that leads onto the Nordschleife, using every inch of road. Could not be closer to that Armco barrier. It doesn't matter day or night, pushing equally hard in these GT3 cars. And into the Hotzenbox section, they go through this right-hander with that number 80 Mercedes crashed in qualifying, and then into this left and then right sequence. We can see they use that curb on the right-hand side. Not so much actually for Verstappen on this lap. I'm not sure why, but not using as much of that curb on the right-hand side, but they will definitely clobber this one on the right-hand side, using every inch of road on the exit as well, as Engel gets caught behind this slower car and then has to squeeze behind another one as well. He is bottled up behind that Porsche Cup car, which uses its turn signal, stays to the right-hand side, but they're actually quite fast in a straight line as that Porsche eventually backs out of it, allowing these two to battle for the race lead as Verstappen flashes his lights but backs out of it in the aero wash as he once again lives to fight another day behind this number 80. But back on the Donningerhöhe, and the number 80 is a sitting duck on this lap. Verstappen has the draft, but there's just nothing you can do if you're that car out front. It's inevitable that Verstappen will find his way past as he pops to the right-hand side. Engel tries to defend as best he can on this inside line, but Verstappen has the overspeed and indeed the position as he reclaims the race lead for that Team Verstappen Racing number 3 car. And through Hohenrhein, we can see Verstappen aggressive with his number 3, but Engel has so much experience behind the wheel of a Mercedes GT3 and is able to counter all of Verstappen's moves. And with Verstappen once again caught in traffic, the 80 car will once again close in as he finds his way past this Cup car, has to pop to the right-hand side, use that curb on the right, and then through the Kleines carousel. Engel flashing his lights, with Verstappen taking that aggressive, almost sim racing line out of the exit of the Kleines carousel as they encounter Dacia Logan traffic through the entry of Galgenkopf. Engel tries to stay close to this Mercedes out front and indeed try to make his way into the race lead once again. Based on all of the previous evidence that we have seen, I think he is just close enough to tow his way back into the race lead down this long straightaway. And with this straight continuing, indeed, he is inching closer and closer. They begin to make their way up the hill, and Verstappen's Mercedes begins to stall. Engel looks to the right-hand side as Verstappen smartly defends the preferred racing line. Engel has the run though, and they go side by side as they encounter really slow traffic into Tiergarten and make contact, sending the number 80 off the road. The teammates nearly taking each other out as they battle for the race lead. Engel slightly delayed by the contact, but able to continue, and that is very, very fortunate for the Mercedes driver. With the race continuing, the team finally decided that enough was enough, and they told these two cars to hold position. So with 3.5 hours remaining, it is advantage number 3 Mercedes. But if you listen, there is a rattling sound coming from the rear of this Mercedes. And as Hunkadeya works his way through traffic, he is trying to figure out what the cause of this sound is. He continues to push the car, and he doesn't seem to be losing performance, but indeed, the sound persists. Surely that is not normal for a Mercedes GT3 to sound like that, especially at the rear. But at this point, what can Hunkadeya do besides continue to push this Mercedes and himself to the limit? They do have a safe race lead, but it's only about 40 seconds ahead of their teammate, so any delay in the pits will certainly cost them the race victory. But as he continues to drive, the sound continues to worsen. And through the louder links, he catches traffic, but ultimately decides that enough is enough. Something is seriously wrong at the rear of his Mercedes. He slows down behind this white BMW as we see yellow flags and safety vehicles out front, but mentally, he seems to have decided that it is race over for this number 3. They make their way past the yellow safety vehicles, and indeed the sound continues to worsen. Now we can see the BMW touring car pulling away from the still race-leading number 3 Verstappen Racing Mercedes. But it appears to be game over for Hunkadeya and the entire number 3 crew. And such is the cruelty of racing at the Nürburgring. Would you rather go out in the first 4 hours like Kevin Estra, or in the last 4 hours like the Verstappen Racing crew? And as they continue through Moot Curve, Engel now can see his teammate limping his way back to the pits, and this is the pass that will decide the race at the 2026 Nürburgring 24 Hours. Through Steilstrecke, Hunkadeya can see his teammate continuing on to victory as he makes his way slowly back into the pits. And as Hunkadeya pulls into his pits, the car immediately goes up onto the jacks and back into the garage. After a quick assessment, it is discovered that there is an issue with the drive shaft, and indeed, their battle for the race victory has come to an end. So, with 0 minutes remaining on the clock, Maro Engel makes his way across the start-finish line to claim victory for Mercedes and the number 80 crew. What an incredible, incredible victory it was, coming back from a 25th place starting position to win the Nürburgring 24 Hours in front of the largest crowd in history. What a feeling that must be. Anyways, if you guys made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for all the support. It really means a lot to me, and I really, really appreciate it, and I really appreciate you guys. If you are new to this type of racing, I say welcome. If you made it this far, you are definitely a huge sports car fan, and we love having you on board. There are so many incredible races just like this, so please check them out and continue watching. And I want to give a special shout out to my channel members. Thank you guys so much for watching and so much for all the love and all the support. I really, really appreciate it. It means so much to me, and your support is what keeps me going. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I love you guys, and I cannot wait to see you in the next video.